Hey everybody, it is Mr. Fisher here with my 42nd attempt at this video, and this one's going to be perfect. That's the only one you're going to see. Anyway, as you recall, we're working on Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm going to hold up some stuff as we talk here. And Bloom's taxonomy, as you remember, I think looks like this. And you never have to memorize this particularly. There's no quiz on it, but we're working at the upper end here at evaluation, which Bloom, you might remember, said is the hardest part of critical thinking. I'm not sure that's true, but we're going to look at it again. You've already done some work about this. You developed criteria for what might have been kind of a fun assignment, or at least a fun assignment. Some of you might have come up with criteria for picking the best community colleges, or how you evaluate one, or how you come up with criteria for the best movie of all time, or the most influential pop singers, or the best NBA player, that kind of stuff. And you got the group for that. And that was the criteria part. This is going to be a little tougher, I think, in a couple of ways. One is the content's going to be a little different. And I'm going to say that in a couple of ways. Number one is that, whereas in the last time you kind of judged something and whether they were a great movie or a great community college, that's not going to be the case here. Bloom sometimes meant something different by evaluation. It always means coming up with criteria. And the criteria in this time, in the unit we're going to do now, is for some words. I remember watching the Olympics a few years ago, and ballroom dancing was part of the Olympics, and I wondered, is that really a sport? I remember thinking at the time, if I watch ESPN, the sports network, they had poker on it, and sometimes they had things like competitive eating, and I thought, gee, I don't know if those are sports or not. Is pool a sport, or billiards a sport? I even wonder if golf is a sport. So it's kind of a fun question to think about. I'll give it another context. One is music. You probably have been with old people who go, you call that music? I don't think that's music. It's a very famous thing for people to say. Philip Glass, the classical composer, once composed a piece of music that was just silence. And he made the point that all music contains silence. Why not have a whole piece of it? Depends on the definition of music. We're getting to a more serious point because we're going to read things in which people accuse other people of things like racism. People are going to say, I'm not a racist. Okay, very liberal people will say it, and other people will say, no, that comment you made makes you a racist, or your background makes you a racist. We frequently argue about what makes somebody a patriot. Okay, if they've been a soldier or not. Some people think that makes them patriots, some not. It's not just political, sometimes it is. When Donald Trump calls something fake news, it was interesting. The one time he defined what he meant, he did not mean that it wasn't telling the truth, although that's what people think. He literally said, it's when people write things about me that don't agree with my policy. He said, that's what makes it fake news. So that's kind of interesting. Lots of times we talk about people who are heroes, and we almost never get to the point where we define what a hero is. Those are politically charged in a way today's word is not going to be. Today we're going to work on this. What is language? And it's odd. I am guessing that you've never thought about it much. We talk language, we don't think about it, but we will in a couple of seconds have you thinking about it quite a lot. And I hope it's engaging and fun. You're going to need a couple of things. The first thing you're going to need is this. If you're looking at my screen share now, it's a document that says, is this language? And I'm going to, in 1 second here, frequently hit the pause button at my end, and I want you to hit the pause button as often as you need to. There's no reason to speed through this assignment at all. You have a pause button, and so I'm going to sometimes give you time to do something. And one of the things I'm going to do is have you download this sheet that says, is this language? You can download it and print it. If you prefer to handwrite on it, you are going to be writing on it, and you can download it and put it on your computer and go back and forth between what I'm going to do and what you're going to do. Okay. And so you're going to be handing in your writing on this sheet as a homework assignment, kind of an important one. So I want you to take it seriously. Okay. You're going to see a couple rules. The first one is right here. It says, don't work ahead. So no matter what I do now, I'm going to stop you frequently, and I want you to do the work when I say. It will do you no good at all to work ahead. You'll have to go back and redo it anyway, and you won't finish any quicker, so it won't do any good to do that. So I'm going to pause here for a second, and you should go and download this, get it printed. You want to come back tomorrow and do this. Whatever works for you will be very good for that. And so I'm going to stop that for a moment. Here's the second thing we're going to do here. So the first rule is don't work ahead. The second rule is to consider this Venn diagram. I'll show it to you here. It starts like this. Here is a circle, and inside this circle, are forms of communication that are not language. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Forms of communication that are not language. Sorry for that delay there. And so what I mean by that is, I think we could accept the fact that there are lots of things that are languages, and all of them are forms of communication. So this would be something. I want to know what these X's might be, okay? And the X's are kind of interesting to think about. And you can pause. I'm going to give you a couple examples. You can pause now and do them if you like on your own. But I think this is an example. You look at that. Some of you know what to do. Some of you don't know what to do as far as it goes. If I said calculate it, some of you could, some of you couldn't. And I think we'd agree this is not language, even though it's a form of communication. And then there's this little weird thing I'm going to add to it. I don't know if you saw this. These are words. This is a viral math problem. So you might remember it, you might not. But it's interesting to think about this once. Just do it. Okay, it's a fairly simple math problem. And then why would it have gone viral? Not communication, I mean, a form of communication, not language. This one combines both. Here's another one. Okay, if you look at this, I think everyone knows that it communicates something. Starbucks, it may even evoke for you lots of Starbuckian thing, okay? But it itself doesn't have any words. It's a form of communication. I think you recognize that. That's right, it's Wikipedia. Recognize that. It's a letter that gets closer to language, but I don't think it is. Okay, that's Google's logo. This one I'm guessing means nothing to you. If I got it close, you might see it. It was the London Olympics, Pepsi, and then 7-Eleven. So take a second or two. I'm going to pause this for you to come up with, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 examples, if you like this more than that, of things that are examples of forms of communication that are not language. Write them in the box. So right over here where it says jot examples down, write them in the box there. As many as you can either handwrite, you can use the back of the piece of paper you want. This is what's going to be handed in. So take a few minutes to do that if you need it. Okay, so this is the part. You're going to have this sheet out in front of you. I'm going to give you 8 examples. I'm going to call them test cases. Okay, these are things that either might be language and might not be language. In every case, I'm going to say something to introduce it. I'm going to pause and ask you, is this an example of language? Are you not sure? And is the answer no, it's not language? And your comments and questions go right over here in this right-hand column. You might raise a question. You might say you have to look something up. You might say, well, I don't understand it. You might say no one could understand it. So that's what I want you to do. And I'll remind you frequently not to work ahead. It won't do any good. So here's number 1. Let's call this an emoji sentence. And take a look at it. And I'm going to ask you, not if you understand or not, I'm going to ask you, is this example of language? Not sure, or the answer is no. And then write your comments or criteria. If it is, why is it? Okay. And remember, I don't want you to forget that it might communicate and still might not be language, because we have all those examples. That's how we started it. So I want you to be thinking about that all the time. And in the right-hand column, write the criteria that you're using. I'll show you this again to remind you. So these are some of the examples that we may or may not have come up with of things, of forms of communication. Oops, I better get this stop screen sharing here. Okay. So things like music and the math formula we might have mentioned. How about applauding? Would that be something that might be a form of communication? How about a nod if I do this? Something like that. Okay. And the logos that I showed you. So I want you to be thinking about that as you think about the examples that I'm going to give you. And the first one was the emoji sentence. Okay, here's the second one. The second one is number 2, okay, and it has 2A, 2B, and 2C. Try not to work ahead. Here's 2A. I'm going to read it to you because it sure looks like language, but I don't know if it is. Here's what it says. He says, okay, now whips out his dead. The guy whips out his mobile ints, them to their operator, in there at easy. I can his eyes head. The of New Jersey hunters are heard. He sure it easy. I doesn't seem to their operator. In his make sure oh thing, and his eyes heard, he do. A couple phone and he's dead. The gas to the emergency scene of the woods whips to their guy's voice. The emergency services, he says, my friend is half rolled back on the ground. He's sure it easy. I can, I'd. Okay, there's many words in there, so there's definitely words in there. I don't want to know about the individual words. I want to know, is 2A language? Vote yes, no, or not sure. And I'm going to give you the second one before you get on and write in the right-hand column. Here's 2B. Okay, I can only read a little bit of it. Medal or Henoir, New Jersey, Allen in Goodwood, Panfin. I'm going to stop there because I have no idea what I'm saying. I don't know if this is a language. I don't know if this is a foreign language. If you do, that's fine. If not, that's 2B. Okay? So take a look there. I apologize for those weird pauses and non-pauses because I'm just getting through this. Anyway, I'll get to it. So here's number 3, okay? And we'll see if you can hear this okay.
Ar y trydydd o Fawrth, fe fydd referendwm I benderfynu os yw Cymru'n heiddi Sais Cymru. Dros y 10 mlynedd diwethaf,
I'm going to stop there. Beneath it, it says Ian Grufford speaking Welsh, and I'm not sure that's a true title or not. Maybe you're sure, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not. But oops, what I want you to do is decide whether 2A, 2B, and 2C, and the answers might be different, are or not language. I'll tell you they're all classified as jokes, may or may not be jokes. In the right-hand column, I want you to take a few seconds and decide what criteria you're using. How is it different than the emoji sentence? All right, I like number 3. Don't work ahead on it. It's called Morse code. And here is, I want to tell you a story. There was a kind of movie I used to watch as a kid. There are a lot of World War II movies that took place on ships and boats and submarines and all that. And when they were on boats, there seemed to always be a scene where the boat, where the hero was, got hit by a torpedo. It blows up. Okay, and the captain goes down to this thing that looks like a closet. He goes in and he says, Ensign Fischer, send the message out that we need help. And Ensign Fischer does something like this. Here's what Ensign Fischer does. Fischer, send for help. What's going on there, Fischer? Do you hear anything? And the guy usually turns to the captain and says, we haven't heard back yet, Captain. What should I do? He says, say again. Say we need help. We're sinking. So my question is, I'm going to guess none of you understand what those beeps are. This guy looks like he understands what those beeps are. I don't understand what those beeps are. Are the beeps language? That's number 3. Yes, no, not sure. Compare it to the others. Write down information. And we'll go to the next one in a second. That was number 4. Pretty good, huh? Pretty good acting. So number 4, I call the language of pain, and I'm a very bad actor. But when you hear someone cry out in pain, not in words, and just that cry, okay? Other ones I can think of are things like somebody's heartbeat. When a doctor looks at a heart, he listens to a heartbeat. So you think those are language or not? That's your vote for number 4. Yes, no, not sure. Make some notes about it. Go back and revise your other notes. Keep being consistent if you can be. If you think it's easy, you're not thinking tough enough, okay? Because it's not that easy to decide. I'm looking for it to be tough. All right, here's number 5. I'm going to be quiet and do a couple of things. Here it goes. So that's what I'm talking about. We can call that body language or not. I'm going to include in that something like a firm handshake. Many of you have probably been told to shake hands firmly, shake hands like a man, whatever that means. Not the talking part, is the shaking hands part. Some of you have been told that to be good students, you should look your teacher in the eye, make good eye contact, nod your head a lot. I want to know if that collective stuff, not them individually, if that collective thing you could call the language. On your sheet, I called it body language. I should have called it body language. I'm not sure it's a language. I'm sure it's a form of communication. And remember, once again, we're looking at these things here where we can find forms of communication that either are or not language. And I want you to decide whether or not body language. It doesn't seem to have any words. And so is this thing called words necessary for language? That's something you might think about in your criteria. Okay, number 7 is completely charming. I love number 7. I'm going to, what do I call it on the thing? Baby talk, or I didn't forget what I said. Yeah, baby talk with Kingston. So you might have seen this. It went viral a couple years ago. It has an introduction from Chris Cuomo, and you're going to see a father and son having a conversation. I'm interested in Kingston, the baby. If you think Kingston has language, is Kingston speaking a language? You're going to hear him in conversation with his dad. It's one of the most charming things ever. Here's the intro, and then I'll ask you about Kingston.
All right, listen to this. Something has gone viral, and thank God it's not something vicious and political. Hooray! 47 million views on Facebook alone. Dad and his toddler engaging in some serious pseudo-dialogue.
Did you understand it though? No.
Oops. Nope, I got to pause this. Something happened. Sorry about the interruption. This should have it.
You understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, no. Not this one. This is the grand finale of it. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I said. He was like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what in the world? Don't do that here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh.
So the headline says video of dad's chat with babbling babies. The baby's clearly babbling. I want to know if Kingston has language. I know Kingston will have language because he's learning it right there from his dad, who is charming. It's just wonderful. Anyway, the URL, if you want to watch the whole thing, is there. He interviews the dad and the kid later on. So I want you to vote. Kingston, language, yes. Language, no. Not sure. Evolving, okay. Depends on what you heard there. So I'll give you a chance to do that. And I just realized I skipped number 4. So go back to number 4, the one that you have there, because I have 2 number 4. So it really should be American Sign Language. So here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to make any assumptions. I want you to listen or watch the first part of this. Okay. So that would be, if I had done it right, that would be the first part. There's a line there. Okay. Do you think that's language or not? Okay. And then I'm going to add the captions and tell me if anything changes. Not about your understanding, about the language or not. So it brings up the question of whether language has to have an oral component. This language does not. We can say this in English, you're seeing it there, but is that the same as ASL? So I want you to vote on both of them and make a note there in the column about whether this is a language or not, and then we'll get to the next one in a minute. Here's the 8th one. I love the 8th one. When I used to do this live in class, it sometimes would be a big argument. I'm calling it Sparky talk. Here's the setup. You have the smartest dog in the world. You've told me you have the smartest dog in the world. Your dog's name is Sparky. And Sparky does everything. Responds to commands, does tricks, protects the house, does all this stuff. And you say Sparky has language. He has dog language. And I say, I don't think dogs have language. I think they bark a lot. I think they communicate. They growl. They do stuff like that. But they don't have language at all. And he says, why don't you come over to my house and I'll show you. Okay. And I said, well, that's a pretty good deal. So we go over to his house. And he introduces me to Sparky. And he comes in and says, hey, Sparky, how you doing? And what's interesting is that unbeknownst to us, he finds out later that their house had been broken into. And somebody had come in and for reasons that are really obscure had stolen their toaster oven. And we don't know this yet. So he says, Sparky, how was your day? Sparky, do you want to go outside? Oh, you don't? Do you want something to eat? Oh, you don't want something to eat? Did anything weird happen today? So he does all this stuff, and we get no information at all from Sparky as to whether or not somebody broke in. Of course, you think, oh, in your case, the dog would show you that somebody broke in. But I want to know if, in this case, little Sparky here has language. If you think that's language, vote yes. If you're not sure, vote no. If you think it's not, and then make some notes about Sparky. Compare Sparky to the language of pain. Compare him to Little Kingston. Compare him to any of the other ones and start thinking about the overall criteria. Well, let's pause here for a second so you can do that. Oops. And so here we are. Okay? You've done 8 cases. This is an exercise in inductive thinking. Here's how inductive thinking works. We do it all the time. You see an example, you see an example, you see an example, and you make a generalization. Okay, you start school and you say, oh, first teacher's nice, second teacher's nice, third teacher's nice. I'm going to have a good semester. Teachers at DVC are nice. Okay, you go to a restaurant, your food's bad, my food's bad, their food's bad. You never go back because all the food is bad. Here you have 8 mixed examples of things that may or may not be language. And inductive thinking starts with the specific and goes to generalizations. So I want you to make generalizations now. And you can do it on this sheet. This is what you're going to turn in. It's your turn. I want you to reread your notes and rethink your votes and think inductively, as I said, to make generalizations about what defines something as a language. The question is, what criteria should we use to determine whether some form of communication, and these are all forms of communication. Remember, we started back with this. They're all forms of communication is a language. I want you to write it as a list. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. I think my definition has 6 things something must be in order to be a language. I'll give you a specific example in a minute. I want you to be clear, specific, and precise. Okay? Here's what I mean by precise. If you say something like, as you will, languages communicate, then every single one of the ones that you had that didn't communicate. So if the emoji sentence didn't communicate, and if you didn't understand Morse code, or you didn't understand the guy speaking Welsh, you'd have to say those aren't languages. But of course you're going to say, but they are languages. So I think you have to say something like, they have the potential to communicate. That's more precise. At least some human on earth has to understand them, if you think humans understand language. So that's what I mean by precision. Number 1, a list. Number 2 is precision. Number 3 is be comprehensive. So if we want to discuss a new example, the definition will fit. So if we go back here and say bring up music, which initially we've listed as not an example, okay, maybe it is an example of language or not. Why wouldn't it fit? So the definition doesn't fit just these 8 examples. The definition is in general the example that you're going to do. So pause it here. Come back when you get a second. Okay, I'll pause it here for a second too. And don't use a dictionary or any reading now. We're going to get to that later, so that's not something you'll do here. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. Okay, so you're back. So now you have it. You have this chart. You have a definition. You started out with forms of communication in art language. You have your votes and your notes on the 8 test cases. You have your definition. That's what I want you to submit to me in assignments as a homework assignment. And it's going to count as a full homework assignment. And then I want you to bring it to our next class. Our next class will be a live Zoom class. And then we'll get together and figure out what we have in groups and see if we can hammer out something together. Okay? Down here, I listed some terms that may come up later on when I mentioned them before, when sometimes you talk about somebody's addicted to something or somebody is moral or it's unethical. Those are terms that are really hard to define. Okay? And the reason we're doing this with language, and we could have done it with sport or athlete or music, those are all fun to do. I like this one because it's an abstract term that plugs right into some of these topics that are coming up in the news. So good luck with this, everybody. I think this is a really fun assignment to do, and by fun, I mean fun, okay? You can communicate with each other on this if you want to. You can work together in a study group if you want to. You can do that if you want to. You don't have to. I want your own definition of criteria under which something is a language. Good luck on this, and I will see you in class.